Staircase Stories, narrated by Nathan and Nicholas Bowling. We live in the realm of reality, but truth is always elusive. It leads us deeper into the tunnels of evidence and beyond the reaches of fantasy. The only explanation will be found descending the staircase. Coming down.
The stories in this episode may be disturbing to some. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome
To Staircase Stories.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Nick.
And today we have a super special guest, our friend, Cade Shepard. Hey, Cade.
What's up, guys? I'm Cade. Happy to be here.
All right, yes, sir. Thank you very much for coming over and hanging out with us on the staircase. So you will be the one today that is going to be guessing the stories. You're going to be adding your 2 cents after each story. And then at the end, just as we did in the last episode, you will be guessing which one is true. And we'll see if you can guess correct or if you're thrown off and go down the wrong path. And just a quick reminder here for anyone that is new to the show, since we are on so many platforms, go to staircasestories.com, anywhere you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, etc. For any of our new listeners that did not catch the first episode, go back and listen to it. But what normally happens is Nathan writes the stories. They're all original content. I do all the editing and the guessing. Instead of that, we're going to switch it up today. We got Cade, our special guest. He's going to be the one that is actually guessing at the end. So we'll see if we can throw him off.
Alright, let's start with our first tale. Let's get into it.
What's better than the safety of your own home? Security systems are installed into the walls of homes every day. Keys lock doors every night to stop a potential burglary. But what happens when the danger is already inside your house? When your safety is stripped and replaced with terror? Do you really know who's in your home? Find out when it happens to John and Claire in Hide and Seek.
Danny was an interesting boy. He didn't laugh and play like the other children his age. He loved to draw and spent most of his time silently creating different pictures. His parents, John and Claire, attempted countless times to get him to socialize with friends. However, Danny only wanted to stay home and draw. Most of his pictures were nothing out of the ordinary. A yellow bus with kids playing in their seats. A blue sky containing a single red kite flown from a small boy. None of these drawings drew anyone's attention. Until one day when Claire began cleaning Danny's room. As she emptied his small trash can, she noticed balled up papers. Unfolding one of them, her eyes grew wide as she examined the lines on the page. It was a drawing of their family. In crayon, he drew John, standing to the far left. Next came Claire, and then little Danny. But they weren't alone. Standing next to Danny, holding his hand, was a tall man. Black crayons disfigured his shape, but she knew it was a man. Behind the 4 of them sat their home. Claire began to unravel the next few drawings, each equally disturbing. The black figure appeared in every one, either in the background or holding Danny's hand. The last crumpled paper revealed a truly shocking image. A single bed with John and Claire displaying the couple sleeping. The black figure stood at the foot of the bed, watching, alone. Just then, a voice sounded from behind her. "Mom, I'm home." "Danny," said Claire, surprised. "What are you doing?" he asked as he threw his book on the bed. "Cleaning your room. I want you to finish it out," Claire said, taking the trash can with her. Claire waited until John came home to show him the drawings. "Did you talk to him about these?" asked John. "No. I thought we talked to him together," replied Claire, staring at the drawings again. "Hey, Daniel, can you come in here for a second?" John called out. "Yeah, Dad?" said Danny. "Hey, babe, look. Mom found some of your drawings in the trash. We wanted to talk to you about them," said John, glancing at Claire. "I don't know," said Danny, looking at the floor. "Sweetheart, you're not in trouble. We just want to talk." Claire paused, then began again. "Look, here. Who is this man?" "I don't know," Danny said again, still looking at the floor. "Why'd you toss them, bud? They're good drawings," said John, hoping Danny would open up. "Frank said I can't draw him anymore," Danny said, betraying himself. Who's Frank? Claire asked gently. Danny paused. Then he pointed at the black figure on his drawing. John and Claire looked at each other as uneasiness settled over them. Is he a friend from school? Asked Claire. She knew Danny didn't have many friends. No. How do you know? I'm tired. Can I go to bed now? Interrupted Danny. Sure, pal. We'll talk tomorrow, replied John, as he and Claire watched Danny leave the room. Okay, this is officially freaking me out, said Claire. Well, he's probably like, an imaginary friend, said John. If our son has an imaginary friend named Frank, it still freaks me out, said Claire. Alright, I'll try to talk to him again tomorrow. That night, John couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, searching for a comforting spot to rest. He kept thinking about Frank. John had seen plenty of movies to know not to ignore something like this. He decided to get out of bed for a glass of water, careful not to wake Claire. He quietly made his way down the hall, then continued to the kitchen. Grabbing the glass from the cupboard, John flipped on the tap, filling the cup halfway. Turning in place, he looked around the room. Claire always kept it nice and tidy, which was why, when he noticed a small dirt pile on the floor, he felt something was wrong. As he approached, he could see that it wasn't just a dirt pile, but 2 shoe prints. John began to panic when he noticed the shoe prints continued and led right into Danny's room. Running, he barged right through the doorway, but to his surprise, Danny was awake, looking out his window, the light still off. "Danny, what are you doing?" panicked John, turning on the light and moving towards him. But Danny didn't turn around. "Daniel! Daniel!" said John, taking him by the shoulders. "What?" asked Danny. "Why are you up? What are you looking at?" replied John, looking out his son's window. "He said I'm not supposed to say," said Danny. "Who did? Frank? Was there someone in your room?" asked John, looking at the tracks leading to the window. John waited for Danny to answer, but he wouldn't. He decided to put his son back to bed. "Danny, if you see Frank again, I want you to tell me. Can you do that?" John pressed gently. Danny nodded, then turned over to sleep. The next morning, after John told Claire everything that happened, they decided to call the police. Once the officer arrived, they tried to explain what had happened. "Dirt?" asked the officer. "Yes. No, not just the dirt. It's foot tracks leading to my son's window," clarified John. "Right. Okay," said the officer. Claire looked at John, then to the officer. "We're saying we don't know where they came from." "Well, dirt usually comes in on your shoes." Claire's eyes widened. "Look, you guys probably just tracked it in yourself. All I can do is suggest an alarm system if you think it wasn't you," continued the officer. "Our son has been claiming to see a man, someone named Frank. We thought maybe it was his imagination until we saw the footprints leading to his bedroom," interjected Claire. The officer seemed more attentive now. "Is your son home? I'd like to speak with him," asked the officer, looking closer at the foot tracks. "He's at school," answered John. "Okay, I'm gonna write up an official report. If you guys can think of anything else, give me a call," said the officer, handing the couple his card. As the officer left, Claire turned to John. "His whole tune changed once we mentioned Frank," said Claire, taking a seat on the couch. "Good. I can't believe he thought we did this," returned John, joining her on the couch. "You're gonna talk to Danny today," began Claire, but was quickly cut off by a noise coming from their bedroom. "What was that?" asked John, staring down the hall. John began down the hallway, walking slowly, listening for sounds from his room. He held his breath as he wrapped his fingers around the doorknob, looking down the hall to Claire, who was staring in fear back at him. A final rattle on the other side of the door sent John barging straight into the room. John froze. There was no one there. "John, what is it?" yelled Claire from the other room. John looked around. He noticed both nightstand drawers were open, the content rifled through. "Our drawers are open, but there's no one here," said John as Claire walked in. "What the hell, John?" said Claire, looking through her nightstand. John knelt down and looked under his bed. Nothing. Next, he walked to the closet. Although there was no one there either, the closet had a musky smell. Do you smell that? Asked John, still in their closet. Ugh, smells like bad cologne, replied Claire. Should we call the officer back? She continued. He barely believed us to begin with. I'm not even sure what we would report. Cologne smell coming from our closet? I'm starting not to feel safe in my own home, John. I know. We'll figure this out. That night, John entered Danny's room, as Danny was drawing at his desk. Hey, Dan. Hey, Dad, replied Danny. So, have you seen Frank today? No, replied Danny, grabbing another crayon from his pack. What time does he usually stop by? Asked John. Whenever it's safe, replied Danny. Safe? From you and Mommy, answered Danny. Why would Frank be afraid of us? Asked John. He says you wouldn't be friends with him. He says you'll make him leave. Wait, what do you mean leave? Asked John. Danny put down his crayons and turned to John. He lives here, Dad, he said, as he slowly looked up at the ceiling. John instantly picked up Danny and took him to their bedroom where Claire was getting ready for bed. What's going on? Asked Claire, reaching for Danny. Danny just told me Frank, he's living in our house, replied John, fear and panic in his voice. Stay here, call the police, continued John. As John left the room, he went to the kitchen for a knife. Returning to the living room, standing over where the dirt trail began, he looked up. A small square attic entrance loomed over John. He pulled the couch directly under it and stood on top, reaching for the ceiling. He gently moved the attic's entrance and instantly heard movement above. He quickly pushed through and lifted himself up. A powerful smell overwhelmed John, making him gag. He continued climbing. John could see something moving at the other end of the attic. No, not something, someone. A man was moving through his attic. John could barely see him, he moved so fast, obviously familiar with the attic space. Hey! Yelled John, but decided to drop back to the living room. Claire! Danny! Get out of the house! John shouted, running to his bedroom. To his horror, Claire and Danny were hiding in the closet. Another attic entrance hung above their heads. John? Called Claire, as a man dropped from the ceiling in front of her. He could clearly be seen now. Long, black, greasy hair fell to his shoulders. Skinny and tall, his skin almost looked black from the time spent in the attic. He wore only jeans and boots, both covered in dirt. Thick, black fingernails curled like talons, and his odor filled the closet and bedroom like a tidal wave. Frank! Danny called out to his friend. John held the knife overhead and charged towards Frank as the man slowly turned and closed the closet door. A yellow smile appeared on the man's dirty face just as John's knife barely missed and stabbed into the wooden door. John banged and pounded on the door, but he couldn't get it open. Claire! Danny! John shouted, but he couldn't hear anything on the other side. He continued to beat on the door until finally it opened. John pushed his way in, prepared to fight, only to find the bodies of his family, twisted unnaturally. John was in shock. As he fell to his knees, he heard people behind him. Freeze! Don't move! Said a police officer, pointing his gun at the back of John's head. They lowered him to the ground and gasped at the condition of the wife and young boy. As John was being arrested, he looked at the attic entrance, as a man's face hauntingly looked back.
Alright, so that was Hide and Seek. Cade, what did you think about that one?
I liked it. The thing I like about it is it could very easily be a true story about a man hiding in his house, hiding in the attic, but the thing at the end with the bodies being bent and deformed and everything and him getting away, disappearing, makes it to where it's like, okay, is this a man or is he some supernatural demon thing? That detail at the very end is where it's like, okay, I don't know if this could be real or not.
Right. Nick, what did you think?
That's a really good point. I never actually thought about that. You know, if they're all bent up and stuff, maybe there is some extraterrestrial demonic thing going on or something. This is actually a really good story. Probably one of my top favorites out of all the ones you've written, Nate. So I really enjoyed that one a lot.
Do you think it's possible that someone could live long term in an attic and then sneak around the house at night?
Yeah, for sure. I think in today's times that people are so busy, nobody's really at their house anymore. So if you have access to an attic that people don't normally go in, especially the type of attic, it's not like the kind that you open up and a ladder falls down. Right. It's like one that you got to work to get in there, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't go in their attics very much. So yeah, you could totally live in somebody's attic, and when they're gone, just go in their house and do what you need to, and then I mean, you know when they're about to get home anyways, so crawl back up there.
Yeah. I think that's the most disturbing thought, someone being in your home. You know, you go home to find safety, and then that's where the danger actually is. Super creepy.
Oh, for sure.
All right, so let's get into the next one.
Mother Nature. She can be cruel. Fierce rains destroy different parts of our world each year. Our best defense against her is finding shelter. But what if Mother Nature wants to destroy more than just our material items? What if she decides to end all of life here? Think it could happen? Take a ride with Officer Paul Lacey as he investigates a strange phenomenon in Fear the Rain.
Hey, answered May, Paul's fiancée. Hey you, said Paul.
So you're finally off work?
Finally. Did you want me to pick up food on the way in?
Nope, I'm making it now.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Oh, shut up.
I'm kidding, Hello? May? Hello? Damn. Call dropped. He attempted to call May back when he noticed the rain starting to pick up. Turning on his windshield wipers, he noticed the rain didn't wipe off like normal. Instead, it smeared across his windshield like jelly. He couldn't even see out of his windshield anymore. As he pulled under the awning to the nearest gas station, he noticed other cars pulling off too.
Hey, Officer Lacey?
Paul reached for his radio. Go for Lacey.
Hey, sorry, I know you're off shift, but we've got multiple phone calls coming in about this rain we're having. Some people say it's hail, others don't know what to think.
Yeah, I'm actually driving in it now. I'll check it out and radio back when I know more.
Copy.
Paul stepped out of his cruiser and opened his umbrella. He pulled his gloves on and examined the colorless slime. Sticking out his finger, he wiped down the windshield, creating a gelatinous bulb of rain. Paul wasn't sure, but the little jelly blobs appeared to be moving. Just then, a voice shouted from across the parking lot. Hey! Officer Paul! Paul turned to see Mr. Greenleaf, a local. He too was looking closely at his own windshield. Hey, Tom, returned Paul, flicking the rain off of his glove. What is this stuff? Asked Mr. Greenleaf, wiping the glass with his fingers. Don't look like rain to me, he continued. I'm not sure, but hey, Tom, I wouldn't touch it. Why not? Replied Tom, now smelling the rain on his finger. But Paul didn't know why he shouldn't. He just had a feeling he couldn't shake about this rain. A bad feeling. Over the course of the next few weeks, the rain continued to occur, and with it, strange things began to happen all over town. Reports came in of people having flu-like symptoms. Mr. Greenleaf was one of them. He went into cardiac arrest the day after the first odd rainfall. His daughter, Amy, claimed it was from the rain. Household pets were dying from home to home, and cattle were being found dead scattered all across different farms. No one can figure out what was going on. That is, until Amy came into the police station. Hey, Amy, said Bree, the police station's receptionist. I was hoping to speak with Paul. Is he here? Replied Amy, as she kept looking over her shoulder to the entrance. Yeah, he should be at his desk. You can go on back, said Bree, watching as Amy moved past her quickly. Officer Lacey, can I talk to you? Said Amy, finding Paul at his chair. Sure, Amy, what's up? Said Paul, looking up from his paperwork. I'm sorry to hear about Omelette, said Amy. Thanks. She was a good cat. What about your dad? Is he still in the hospital? Paul asked, with genuine concern. Yes, that's why I'm here to talk to you, actually, said Amy. Ever since my dad's been in the hospital, they won't let anyone in to see him. They're saying it's for quarantine purposes. Quarantine? That's strange, replied Paul. Yeah, and it gets stranger. These two men in black suit and glasses.
He showed me badges too fast for me to even read, showed up at my house and started asking me these weird questions, returned Amy. Paul waited quietly. They asked if I've been exposed to any of this rain recently. They asked if I felt sick, if I noticed anything unusual with my body. They asked me... Amy trailed off. She looked visibly frightened. She kept looking over her shoulder, almost as if she was worried someone would be standing there. Paul stood up. Amy, you're safe here. Whatever it is, you can tell me, said Paul, attempting to ease her anxiety. It doesn't matter. Look, I saved a sample of the rain, said Amy, pulling out a small vial and handing it to Paul. The government guys had me convinced they had something to do with this, and I think they're following me, she continued. Look, I'm going to put a patrol on you to make sure you're safe. I want you to go straight home, said Paul, retrieving the small vial from Amy. Thank you, replied Amy as she turned to leave. Paul took the small vial and held it to the light. Hey, Amy? Paul asked, staring at the vial. Yeah, she replied, turning back around. Is this stuff moving? Asked Paul quietly. I thought the same thing. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, actually. I haven't felt very good since I collected it. I'm just happy not to have it anymore, explained Amy. Get home and get some rest. I'll send this off to the lab today, said Paul. He waited over 3 weeks for the test results to come back. During that time, clear, thick blobs fell from the sky, infecting everything it touched. People stopped coming outside in fear of getting caught in the jelly rain. Military helicarriers and jets seemed to be flying overhead every day. More and more soldiers were passing through the small town in caravans of tanks and Humvees. It all screamed government conspiracy. What was really going on with this rain? With this sickness? Was it chemical warfare? Aliens? Why were the military suddenly here? And more importantly, what were they planning to do? Officer Paul, mail for you, said Bree, as she moved to the back of the police station. Thanks, Bree, said Paul, as she handed it to him. As Paul made his way back to his desk, he opened the yellow envelope. His eyes scanned each line of the test results as he fell into his chair. Oh no, Paul said quietly. He immediately began calling Amy. Come on, Amy, pick up, Paul said to himself. As he attempted to reach her, he looked up to see 2 men in black suit and glasses entering the station. Bree pointed in his direction. The 2 men made their way over as he slowly hung up the phone. Officer Lacey, one of the men in black said, his voice stoic and unearthly. Yeah, that's me, replied Paul.
We'd like for you to come with us,
the other of the 2 stated, his voice almost identical to his partner. Okay, fellas, I'm not sure you guys appreciate where you're standing. People usually come with me and answer my questions, stated Paul firmly, standing and staring into the dark glasses looking back at him. The 2 men looked at each other, then back to Paul.
Officer Lacey, this is regarding May, your wife. She was recently exposed to a feline that was sick due to contaminated water. Please, come with us.
Paul didn't respond. He went with the men at once. Bree, stunned by Paul's sudden departure, went over to his desk. She picked up the recently opened test results, and although she knew she shouldn't, she began to read. To whom it may concern. Our results came back odd, to say the least. The liquid you sent us was extremely unique in its biological makeup. It contained a cocktail of specimen. We first noticed human white blood cells within the substance. Fused within the cells were trace amounts of animal DNA. We've never seen anything like this. We request to have more samples, but please use caution. Do not collect with exposed skin. We found a host of deadly organisms living within the foreign body. Regards, Dr. Rainey. As Bree read the final words, her heart sank as she heard thunder in the distance. And that was Fear the Rain. Alright, Cade, what did you think of this one?
I like this one because it's so far out there that it's like, okay, that can't possibly be true. But the thing that I can't get out of my head is the past year we've had with the coronavirus. So I feel like it could easily be inspired by that. But I like the rain aspect of it, as it's like, what caused the rain? That could easily be done by aliens or, something like that.
Imagine, driving down the road and you start seeing this stuff. I mean, what would you even do? I mean, couldn't even imagine experiencing something like that.
Yeah, I know my curiosity would immediately roll the window down and stick my hand out and see what this is, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would do the same thing.
And then people are getting sick, all throughout the town, so...
Well, that's why it points me towards coronavirus and to where I think this could be inspired by that, because obviously we've had people get sick with that and everything, and over the past year I've made jokes of saying I just can't wait till everybody starts turning into zombies so we can have the zombie apocalypse, so...
Right. Good point. Are we ready to move on to our final tale?
Yes, I am.
Let's do it.
All right.
Just how powerful is the human mind? Many have seemingly pushed its limits beyond imagination, but is it really possible to reach out to another mind? People have long claimed to have the gift of telepathy, even so much as to work for local authorities. Many cases claim to be solved every year by psychic mediums. But what if I told you it's actually true? All of it. What would you think? Follow along as Gart Williams soon finds the truth to his waking nightmare in Perchance to Dream.
Where am I? Gart Williams said to himself. He'd been walking for what felt like forever, although he couldn't remember beginning his walk in the first place. Everything looked so familiar to him, yet he had difficulty placing where he was. It was like having deja vu, only different somehow. It's New York. I'm in New York City, exclaimed Gart. He'd grown up here, but he hadn't been back since he was a kid. He looked around at the tall buildings looming overhead. They felt like giants to him now, giants watching over him. They felt ominous, almost sinister. Where is everyone? Thought Gart. It was like being in a ghost town. Hello! Hello! Shouted Gart loudly. But he couldn't see anyone. No people, no cars, no birds singing their song through the air, no squirrels running from tree to tree. He couldn't even locate the sun, although it was daytime. Hello! Hello! Gart screamed a little louder, realizing for the first time he really was alone. Suddenly, a sharp pain radiated from his head. It felt as though someone had filled it with screws and shook him around. Gart keeled over to one side. The pain almost caused him to black out, until he heard a voice. God, can you hear me? An unknown voice from somewhere asked. The pain slowly subsided as Gart regained his footing and stood straight up. He looked around for the mysterious voice, but he didn't see anyone. Hello? Gart repeated. Hello, God. Don't be afraid. I'm here to help you, the voice explained. Gart couldn't tell what direction the voice was coming from. He began running from empty building to empty building, looking everywhere for the only voice he could hear. Come out here! What's going on? Shouted Gart to the unknown voice, looking in every direction. Please, God, listen to me, and everything will be okay, the voice answered smoothly. Where are you? Gart blurted out in frustration. I'm in a hospital, the voice replied. What? That doesn't make any sense, accused Gart. That's not important. Right now, I need you to do what I say. Can you do that? The voice asked. What else am I gonna do? Gart thought to himself. Good, the voice said. Realization crashed into Gart like a heavy wave. You're in my head. How are you in my head? Gart demanded. No response. What was that? Gart said aloud, turning, looking for the source of the explosion. It was nothing. I need you to listen to me. We don't have a lot of time. Gart was still staring in the direction of the explosion, but decided to listen to the voice. What do you want me to do? Asked Gart. There is a red building at the other end of the city. Get to it quickly, the voice replied. Gart looked for the red building. In the distance, he could see it. It wasn't close, but he didn't have any other plan. He wasn't even sure what he was doing here in the first place. I see it. I'm going now, said Gart, as he began his long trek across New York City. You don't have long. Move, demanded the voice. Gart quickened his pace and moved throughout the city. It was strange seeing New York this way, empty, barren. But as he made his way to the red building, he could see two cars in the distance, a wreck. Wait, were those always there? Gart asked himself, confused. "Please ignore it," the voice replied. As he got closer to the vehicles, he recognized one of them as his own. "My car! What's it doing here?" he said, running to his vehicle. The damage was bad. Did I do this? Gart asked himself, examining the crash. He ran to the other vehicle, but it too was empty. Silence saturated the city like a thick fog as Gart stood there, motionless. "You need to move," repeated the voice. Anxiety took hold of him as he heard the explosions growing closer. He continued onward towards his destination, confusion heavy on his mind. His growing dread worsened when he attempted to read billboards and littered newspaper. "What is going on?" Gart panicked. He couldn't read the words. They looked like jumbled letters haphazardly thrown together. "God, focus," the voice spoke in his head. "What's your name? You keep saying mine like you know me," questioned Gart as he made his way past empty food carts. "Delilah," the voice replied. "Delilah, please, tell me what's going on," begged Gart, never stopping his pace. "I can't. When the time is right, you'll understand," Delilah continued. "You'll just have to trust the voice in your head." "What the hell is that?" yelled Gart, taken by surprise again by the nearing explosion. "You don't have long. You need to move," insisted Delilah, desperation growing in her voice. Gart started to run now. He didn't know what those explosions were, or where they were coming from. He wanted to ask Delilah what it was again, but he knew she wouldn't answer. He kept pushing himself further and further until he could see the red building, only a short distance away. "Delilah, I'm close. I'm really tired. I need to stop and rest," Gart said, barely able to catch his breath. "We don't have time for this," Delilah shot back. "Please, just a few minutes," said Gart as he sat on the paved road. "It's in your head. Come on, you have to keep moving," begged Delilah. "I'm sorry. I can't," he said, closing his eyes. God, please, get up," Delilah yelled in his head. "Tell me what that is," asked Gart as he sat up straight. "I will, once you're inside the building." Gart could feel the wind from the distant explosions, blowing trees wildly to and fro. "Please, run," whispered Delilah. Gart picked himself up and slowly quickened his pace. He was close to the building now. Looking over his shoulder, Gart could see the buildings behind him blow apart like fireworks. Fear set in, driving his legs faster as he neared the red building's entrance. "Delilah, I'm almost to the door," said Gart frantically, running as fast as he could. "Good, it's almost over." Explosions were closing in all around Gart as he ran towards the red building's entrance. He could feel the heat reaching the nape of his neck just as he took hold of the door's handle and dove inside. Gart laid on the floor, still breathing heavy from the adrenaline coursing through his body. He'd made it just in time. As Gart stood, he could see a single medical bed in the middle of the dimly lit room. As he inched forward, he could see someone laying on it. "Delilah? Is that you?" asked Gart, taking slow steps toward the bed. "Don't be afraid," said Delilah. Her voice seemed to vibrate off the walls. He drew near to the bedside as the unknown face began to take shape. Gart saw his own face staring back at him, laying on the bed, a tube running through his nostrils, and an IV drip connected through his vein. Gart looked in horror as another wave of pain suddenly rocked through his head. He fell hard to the floor and blacked out. He's waking up. Oh my God, it worked. "You really are a psychic," said Gart's fiancée to someone in the room. "They don't always listen to my instructions. Most succumb to the coma forever, getting caught in the explosive attempt to rid me of their mind," said Delilah, getting up from Gart's bedside. "I don't know how to repay you. We don't know how to repay you," said Gart's fiancée, looking at Delilah. Delilah smiled as she turned to leave the room and left the hospital.
Alright, that was Perchance to Dream. Cade, what'd you think?
Well, starting off, you're thinking there's no way any of this could be true. Just everything the guy's going through, and it's like, okay, is he in some, I don't know, like virtual reality or something? Like, there's no way that can be true. And then until the very end, you're like, oh, yep, okay, now I get it. Because you always, everybody knows for some reason they say, if somebody's in a coma, you got to talk to them. Like, something about hearing someone's voice to help them wake up or something. So all the way up until the very end, I'm like, this obviously isn't true. And then it's a coma, and you're like, oh, okay, so it could totally be true.
Do you believe in psychics?
Oh, that's a heavy question. Me, not really. No.
Nick?
No, I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, people do come out of comas very bizarrely after many years.
But I just want to say it's very interesting that Cade said that, because that's the exact same way I thought when I first heard it. You know, at the beginning and throughout the story, I'm like, oh, this is definitely not real. But then once you realize it was a coma, so that's why it was empty, you know, New York, that's why the explosions. So that's funny he said it, because I thought the exact same way.
Yeah.
So who was Delilah? She was in the hospital the whole time.
Well, to me, when it starts and it's like I hear a voice in my head and everything, to me at first, she was Charles Xavier. That's who she was to me. Definitely.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get Cade's final thoughts on all three tales. So let's start with hide and seek.
I really like hide and seek because of all three, that's probably the one that could be the closest to being true. But there's still certain details about it that makes you wonder. It's like, okay, again, with the bodies being all bent up and everything. But as far as somebody just living in the attic and being a creeper, totally possible. Totally possible.
Okay, Fear the Rain.
I like this one because it's so far out there. Of all three, this is the one that really played out like a movie in my head for some reason. Like, it could totally be on the Sci-Fi network easily. So that's the aspect that I like about it. With the rain, you don't know what's causing it, people getting sick, animals dying, all that kind of stuff. It's very way out there to where I wouldn't think it would be the true one. But then again, it could just be so far out of left field that it's a reverse psychology move, and it could be real. I don't know.
Okay. All right. And Perchance to Dream.
I like this one all the way into the very end. You're like, none of this is real until you find out they're in a coma. So you really made it difficult, I would say, with the first and third story to which one could be real. I did like this one, though. I like this one because it really made you think. I like how you threw in there with the car wreck and everything, and the guy says, did I do this? And you're like, what? And then at the end, it's like everything gets wrapped up, and when you find out he's in a coma, it all makes sense that he was in a car wreck and all this good stuff, and now he's just trying to get back.
All right, so have you made your final decision?
I have.
Tell us which one you think is true.
The one that I think is true is Fear the Rain.
Correct. Very, very good.
Oh, snap! Ha! I thought it was so far out that I was like, it's gotta be a curveball. This has gotta be it.
Good job. Yes, it is a true story. So this actually happened in 1994 in Oakville, Washington. Over the course of 3 weeks, rainfall happened. They called it the blob rain, and it covered as much as 20 square miles, and it caused people to come down with severe flu-like symptoms. A police officer, David Lacey, was on patrol with a civilian friend when the blobs began raining down at 3 o'clock in the morning. Quote, we turned our windshield wipers on, and it just started smearing to the point where we could almost not see. And we both looked at each other and we said, geez, this isn't right. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, basically, and where did this come from? End quote. Even after Officer Lacey pulled into a gas station to clear up his windshield, he further noted the bizarre consistency of the goo. Quote, the substance was very mushy. It's almost like if you had Jell-O in your hand and you could pretty much squish it through your fingers. We did have some bells go off in our heads that basically said that this isn't right, this isn't normal. Meanwhile, the blobs fell from the sky elsewhere, roughly half the size of grains of rice, at the farm home of Sonny Barcliff. Shortly afterward, Barcliff's mother, Dottie Hearn, was hospitalized for dizziness and nausea. Barcliff herself, as well as a friend, also experienced minor episodes of fatigue and nausea after handling the blobs themselves. Despite this, the doctor who treated Barcliff's mother, Dr. David Little, expressed his doubt that these blobs were the cause for the symptoms. Instead, they could have resulted from an inner ear condition. Hearn herself conceded that the timing of the blobs' appearance and their symptoms could be nothing more than a coincidence. Also, in addition to the coincidental symptoms experienced by the humans involved, a kitten Barcliff had reportedly died after coming in contact with these blobs. This following a battle of severe intestinal problems before the incident. The blobs were reported to have fallen from the sky several more times, though reports of any strange symptoms or deaths vary between confirmed or not between sources. So overall, it rained 6 times in 3 weeks. Several dogs and cats died all across the 20-mile area. Alright, so now comes down to what was it? In one attempt to identify the substance, the blobs were reported to contain human white blood cells. Upon further investigation by the Washington State Department of Ecology's Hazardous Material Spill Response Unit, these cells from the blobs were also found to have no nuclei, which every living thing has a nuclei. Every living cell has a nuclei. So these white bloods, these blobs had white blood cells in them, but the cells themselves did not contain a nuclei, which is just a very strange little detail. So it says that, determined to find answers, nearly a year after her mother's illness, Barcliff took a sample of the blob she had stored in her freezer to a private research lab. There, a microbiologist named Tim Davis with Amtest Laboratories studied the sample. Quote, "I saw that I think was a eukaryotic cell, which is basically a cell that has a definable nucleus and is found present in most animals." So this brings us down to our theories. Speculation arose not long afterward on what the blobs were. One popular theory suggested the blobs were the result of bombing runs done by the nearby military in the ocean 50 miles from the farm, which could have caused an explosion within a group of jellyfish that then got dispersed into a rain cloud. Which is a very strange thing to have happen, but I guess if the bombs are strong enough, maybe it could evaporate them. Although not many people believe this particular theory as the answer, it nonetheless became so popular within the community that it prompted the discussion of holding a jellyfish festival, even leading to the concoction of a new drink in honor of the strange incident. The drink in question, dubbed the jellyfish, comprised of vodka, gelatin, and juice. A second theory proposed by Dr. Little was that the blobs were the result of drops of concentrated fluid waste from a passing airplane toilet. Though when contacted about this matter later, the FAA rebuffed it, adding that all fluid waste from commercial plane toilets are dyed blue, a characteristic none of the blobs had. According to one website which disputed the facts presented by Unsolved Mysteries 3 years after the incident, Barcliff herself contacted the site to give her account on what happened. You can read her account on Marvels of the Past by the author Nicole Henley. All in all, that was the story of the gelatinous rain that rained down on Washington City multiple times over 3 weeks. Dozens of people actually got sick with flu-like symptoms. But the biggest question left behind, if still unexplained, is that no one knows what these blobs were or where they came from, with all evidence now gone, evaporated, and the Washington Department of Health proclaiming that no such records of the samples received exist. So that is the story of Fear the Rain. What do you guys think after hearing that?
I still don't know how that can be true. That's wild. Why haven't we ever heard of that before? And you said it was in what year?
1994.
Okay, we were a lot. I mean, I know we were babies, but like that's not that long ago. It's like, how come?
Well, it only
we
happened
don't
over
know
a course
about
of 3 weeks.
Okay,
And
but
that
yeah,
was-
that's such a crazy story that it's like you think they'd be telling people this.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's wild, man.
One theory that was left out is that some people believe that it was potentially aliens. And after all this footage has come out from the government, you know, who knows? Maybe that could be an explanation. But this is a true story. You guys can look it up. Just type in Jelly Rain and it'll pop right up for you.
Yeah, that was a really interesting story. I enjoyed that. And it's even crazier because that's probably the one that I would have, guessed to not be true. Most people would guess that it's not true, except for Cade, because he got that right. But,
I'm telling you, man, he tried to throw a curveball in there. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. that was the intent. So great job, Cade. Super happy
Thank
to
you.
have you on. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. This was a blast.
Again, so just like Nathan said, we definitely appreciate you coming out and hanging with us on the staircase. If you want to plug any of your links or anything, I know you got a lot going on your end. You can go ahead and do that now if you like.
Yeah, guys, you can hit me up on Instagram at cade.shepherd. That's Cade.Shepherd. You can also check me out on Amazon Prime, a movie called Army of One. It's a good little female Rambo is probably the best way to describe it.
Nice.
It's got a lot of revenge and a lot of killings and stuff. So yeah, check that out.
Yeah, and all those links will be right down below if you guys want to check that out.
And don't forget to check out Nicole Henley's story from Marvels of the Past on the Gelatinous Rain.
And real quick, a special thank you to James Alexander for lending us his amazing voice for our new intro. You can find him and his other inspirational videos at Electric Soul. That's at Electric Soul. Alright, so thank you guys so much for checking out the second episode and hanging out with us here on the steps.
Peace!